Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Couples Academy Live. Today is Relationship Q&A. Join us now.
Well, good morning. We are excited because it's another great Friday. And as you know, Friday is the day where we answer your questions. You've been waiting all week long, hearing all this great content Monday through Thursday. And now you have an opportunity for us to go deep dive into your particular question to help you through your situation. So as you're listening to this, drop your question right in the chat so that we can address it. I'm excited. People are already dialing in. Latasha, good morning.
Good
Good to
morning.
see you. Angel, good morning,
Hey
family.
there.
Good to see you this morning. Good morning, guys. Can't wait to see what we're talking about this morning. It is all
It's
about
all about
you.
right? We're talking about what you want to talk about. We're answering your questions. Sometimes when we have a teaching, there's a whole bunch of questions coming into the chat that we don't have time to answer. But today, we're putting all that time towards answering your questions. So you tell us what you want to talk about today. Hey,
There it is.
Hey, Kiana, how are you? Hey,
Bobby, come on, cousin. What's going on with your family?
You got some questions, Bobby?
Let's get it. All right, what do we want to talk about? Do we want to talk about communication? Do we want to talk about sex? Do we want to talk about trust? Do we want to talk about just male-female differences? What is your question? What are the typical questions that you hear when you're sitting in front of a couple that typically they're confused about and need clarity on?
It's always about communication, one way or another. That's the main thing. Whether it is how do I communicate in general, literally speaking, or tone, that usually is a huge thing. How do I, we've talked about this actually during the love series about how it's hard to talk to somebody when they're always on eggshells about everything. Like it doesn't matter how you come, tiptoeing around the subject still because of their own self-loathing and insecurities. Everything that you say, they have these lenses on where they perceive it as an attack, and it's just like, wait a minute, I wasn't trying to attack you. I was just saying blah blah blah. So these are the things that people are struggling with most of the time. It's the communication. I mean, then you got the bigger issues. Obviously, finances are a huge issue. How to manage them, how to split, divide, come together. All these things, which is also communicating. It all boils down to communication.
And if people communicate better, it shifts things in the relationship.
Excuse me,
and I think communication is one of those things that you have to ongoingly work on in order to become the best you. Here's a great question. How to trust again? You know, a lot of times when we're dealing with trust, we're dealing with what the person needs to do to be trustworthy. So there's that role. But oftentimes, if that person is dotting every I and crossing every T and showing up in the right way, the person who has lost trust still may struggle with knowing how to trust. And so a lot of times we're haunted by the ghosts of our past.
Yeah.
And we're looking at our partner through the lenses of what they've previously done. And we can't get that out of our minds.
Right.
And so the reality is, if your partner is showing up the right way, if they're doing all the right things, you have to begin to open up your heart and your mind to believe in the possibility of what can be. Now, we talk about this all the time. Trust is not like a light switch that just goes on automatically. It's something to be earned.
Yeah.
And so through a pattern of consistent behavior, if they're doing the right thing, you have to give that spouse an opportunity to continue to show up in the right way and believe.
Yeah.
And if you don't believe in them now, believe in their behaviors. Believe in their conduct. And the more you see that consistency, it allows you to begin to believe in their character and their integrity.
I mean, trust is building, right? You have to build trust. And I gave this analogy before, but it was, the idea of how our amygdala in our brain actually creates this nervousness, this anxiety to remind us of trauma and fear so that we don't walk into the same trap again. And so trust oftentimes has a lot to do with the fact that, okay, you first you have to break my trust, right? You have to make me insecure in that space. And now my mind is going to protect me and remind me every time. So in addition to that person showing up in the right way, you've got to do some of your own work to actually help you to build your own trust again and to relax that amygdala so that you know, okay, I've seen, I can believe. Now I've got to actually let the trust go. I mean, let the issue go.
Powerful response. Here's another great question. Why are men so afraid of commitments?
Men and women are afraid of commitment. It's not just the men, right?
Talk about it.
Well, I mean, think about this. This is a new age. People are less likely or less interested in getting married than ever before. Why? Because women are working, making their own money, doing their own thing, successful in their own ranking, right? And so a lot of times women don't want to commit because they don't need anybody weighing them down. And I think that also probably plays a part into why men aren't committing. I mean, in this age, you have the millennials that are like, why do I need to marry? For what? It's becoming obsolete.
And in addition to millennials, if you're dealing with an older person, let's just say they've been married before. There's a phenomenal book I read some time ago entitled The Myth of Male Power. And it talks about one of the reasons why men don't like to remarry. Because if they've been married to a wife and they have children and then they experience a divorce, now they're possibly legally and financially responsible for people who hate them. The spouse no longer likes him for whatever reason, whatever happened in the relationship. Oftentimes the children don't have a great relationship with that man, but they're still, for the rest of their childhood lives, legally attached to him. And so it's less about the fear of marriage, it's the fear of another divorce and what that means. And so now if I already have these people who I'm responsible for me to open up my heart and my mind and potentially my finances and responsibility to yet another person and another family.
Yeah.
I'm struggling to be the best version of myself. I'm struggling to pay my own bills. I don't have it all together. And so somehow for men, there's so many responsibilities that are attached to marriage that they themselves feel they're not equipped for, not ready for. I know men literally in their 40s and 50s who still are trying to figure it out. Now, it's just like, okay, at some point, you know, there should be a certain level of responsibility that you're operating in, but in their own minds, like we talk about this all the time. Women generally want commitment much earlier in life. Men want commitment much later in life because, once again, they're thinking about what they're responsible for. So if I'm struggling to pay my own bills, if I could barely hold on to my job, and then I got to take on all this extra added responsibility, it's a challenge.
And then if you have been married before, a lot of folks are like, I will never get married again. Like, why would I go back down that road? I'm free. I've been there, done that. I've got my kids, you know.
And if the relationship was not a good one, if it was painful, if you've gone through all types of just hell, you're not motivated to jump back into that. And so I think while you're alone, while you're single and alone, we talk about this all the time. There's a difference between being single and separate. You can, if we divorce today, a year from now, we may be separated from each other, but if my mind is still on her, I'm still dreaming about her, I'm still attached to her, I'm not single yet. And so a lot of times we have to go through a season of singleness to purge ourselves from our past so that we're ready for our future relationships.
Okay, Angel has a question. How do I stop the conversation paradox? My spouse end up saying the conversation isn't going to go anywhere and shuts down when we start talking about the conversation not going anywhere. Shaking my head. You know what? That I can identify with that because, you know, when you have these conversations that you've had 1,001 times, right? We're talking about the same thing, different day. It can become draining. You know, it could really be a deterrent because, you know, at the end of the day, I'm going to end up in an argument. I'm going to end up frustrated. And at the end of the day, I don't have the energy. I think it gets to the point where you don't have the energy to talk about the same thing. So whatever that conversation is, if you've had it a multitude of times, because I have a suspicion that that's the case, that the only time you get into a paradox like that where you feel like there's no use is if it's an old conversation. When it's brand new, you don't have those defenses up. You've never talked about it before. There's a level of curiosity. But if you've had it over and over and over again and there's still no change, that can bring on exhaustion.
Yeah, and so that's why I think it's a good time to record a conversation and listen to that conversation a few times and get something else out of that conversation rather than having it 1,001 times. take notes. Just and then sometimes the conversation is had because again and again and again, because you're looking from different angles and different perspectives, and it's like, okay, I understood it that way, but I have to ask the question again because I'm looking at it from this perspective. I mean, we see this happen with affairs all the time. When you're in your discovery phase or you're constantly bringing up the topic of the affair, it's just like, okay, I gained a little bit of understanding, but I need more clarity. What? So it's like you're looking at it from different vantage points. Think about this. If there was a car accident that took place on the corner of Broad and Market, and you're on one corner, you see it from one perspective. Now you want to revisit it in your mind by walking over to the other corner, looking at it from a different perspective, because you're going to have a different reality. And now you want to cross the street and hit the other corner, and then the other corner, and then you want to see it from a bird's eye view. You're looking at it from all these different perspectives to gain complete insight until you feel like you've gotten the level of clarity that you need to be able to move forward. So I think that can apply to an affair, that can apply to many things.
And she has a little add on here. It says, "Yep, it's about chastising kids." And so, when you put that into the conversation, if you have disagreement there, and it seems like you've set boundaries, and every time the boundaries have been pushed, I don't know on whose side, but that could get exhausting. Being tired of saying the same thing over and over again. Sometimes it's true. You're looking at it from different angles, and you're wanting to get understanding, right? And so once that clarity is brought, and you have come to an agreement, and there's a meeting of the minds, if one person literally forgets what you said, it's almost like looking at your face in the mirror and then walking away and forgetting it. There's a scripture like that. Like, it's like, well, why am I going to have this conversation with you again? You're going to do it your way. You're going to do what you want to do. You say one thing and then completely forget that you said it. So I'm tired. I'm exhausted. That could be really frustrating. That's something to work out, because the thing is that when you're not on the same page with parenting, it invites so much frustration into the marriage, and that's what we want to avoid.
Absolutely. I don't have my glasses. I can't read.
I'm the reader today. Okay, we got another one. My husband said that he has moved on. 2 weeks ago, he was with another woman at her mother homegoing. We are still married, and I still love him. I'm trying to let him go, but it's hard.
Yeah, that's challenging. So technically, you're still married, and he has moved on, and he's with another woman, and you're trying to figure out how you can get healing and how you can deal with this. This is why we would encourage you to give us a call. We work with individuals who are kind of in that stuck place, and their relationship is kind of in a transitional period. I would say that we have been in this situation with couples a number of different times, and even though the present situation is the present situation, it doesn't necessarily mean it will always be like that. It's just like when a person's in the middle of an affair, their heart, their mind is not into it. But then something happens and maybe there's a shift. So I would say reach out to us so we can talk more about the particulars on the discovery call, and we'll make sure that we help you in your situation.
Darren says, how do you deal with rebuilding, but the one who committed the offense still thinks about her affair partner and still wanting them more than you?
Wow.
That's a big one.
That is a big one. So a lot of times when you're dealing with an affair, it's an emotional affair that also becomes sexual. And if that relationship is over, you have to understand there's a transition that person has to go through, because if they've been with that person for a couple of months, a couple of years, and that comes to an end, there's still the thoughts about them, they're still fantasizing about that person, they're still making all these types of comparisons, and that particular person needs to go through their own personal recovery process.
Yeah.
See, when we work with couples, there's 3 things we focus on: your marital recovery, your individual recovery, as well as the affair recovery. And the reason why you need that individual recovery process is because if the only thing you focus on is fixing the relationship, but you still have things within you that you have to reconcile and release and get rid of and heal from, and you haven't done that, then your heart and your mind is going to be split between the spouse and the affair partner. Mm-hmm. And so that's why that individual work is so critically important. Yeah. Statistics suggest when you've been away from somebody for a minimum of 4 to 6 weeks, the emotional attachment begins to wither and wane. So there needs to be a period of time. I don't know how long ago that affair was.
Yeah.
I don't know if they're still in contact or communication with each other. Some people go through phases where, okay, I'm not in the affair, but we still, talk from time to time and text from time to time. And so you have to enter into what we call a no contact contract, where you completely sever all ties with that person so that you can get your mind back and your heart back in proper alignment within yourself so that you can focus on your relationship.
I agree. I think also, in addition to the separation piece of it, because that's step one, then you gotta, it's the memories a lot of women are battling with. And, it makes me think of No More Sheets. Because, we always want to act like we're all equal. The truth is that with women, there is a deposit that has been made when you have sex with a man. So there's a deposit there. And now you're warring with that. I've heard women say that they can't get the memory out of their mind. They can't get the feeling, the smell of him, the taste of him. It's different. Whereas men, you don't usually hear men saying stuff like that. It's kind of like for them, a lot of times it was just physical. They didn't have that. They just needed a release. But for women, it seems to be so much more. And so it's so important for her to really do what you like to call the she-talks and really get that man out of her. And a lot of that comes from praying and fasting and doing all those things so that she actually forgets. I was telling somebody the other day that a long time ago, there was this one guy whose number was so simple. It was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay? That's how easy it was. And I wanted to forget that phone number. And I literally asked God, hey, please help me forget this phone number so that I will never remember to call him again. And he did. So you sometimes it has to be a supernatural process. Sometimes no matter what counseling you're in, no matter what you're doing, you got all the practices in place. Sometimes you need supernatural intervention in order for you to overcome certain things. And that's what I would recommend for her.
There it is. What
else we got? Let's see. Good morning, Steve. Good morning, Kathy. Good to see you. Hey, Yvette. It looks like we got a question here. Don't put yourself through hurt and pain trying to hold on to someone who doesn't want you. Much agree. We got a lot of hellos this morning. But yeah, we got one from Pappy Hot. How did you both come to what you show? Love, understanding, togetherness, humbleness, humility. This is what I want in my life. How do you achieve this beautiful thing? What a phenomenal question, Pappy. I really appreciate that. I mean, it's been a long journey. I remember in the beginning days, I used to say this whole idea of who moved my toothpaste, something like my toothpaste not being in the same spot in my bathroom that I was used to all those years before getting married, would create a whole disruption in arguments. But over the years and going through frustrations, we've just put the work in. We've learned that the way to growth and the way to grow together is really to work on ourselves. The stronger we become as individuals, the more we purge out all the stuff that we brought into the marriage, the more we get rid of those baggages and acknowledge where they came from so that we stop assaulting each other with it. Then we became more our authentic selves and learned how to be for each other, become one for one another. Because it's hard to be one with your spouse when you're connected to so much other stuff. You're connected to the hurts from your growing up, being raised. You're connected to the hurts from past relationships, and all these things you bring into the relationship preventing you from oneness. So the more you purge that stuff, the easier it's become.
Absolutely. And let me tell you something. You may see our today, but there was a beginning, and it was rough, and it was tough. And that's why we're hopeful when we hear these situations that you all are going through, because we can identify with a lot of the pain and the frustration and the arguments and all the things that you had gone through, or all the things that you're currently going through. We were there. We were on the verge of divorce. We were ready to call it quits. We were just in our own worlds. And, it's funny. We'll probably show a clip sometime next week of when we were on the Black Love documentary on the OWN network. And it really encapsulates what we were going through. But to Danielle's point, because we were willing to put in the work and do what was necessary and constantly began to work on us. Once again, the more we began to focus on each other, that's when things remained stuck, things got worse. But when we began to look within, Because at the end of the day, I can't change her. There's nothing I can do to change her. She can't change me. But when she got on her knees and began to pray for me, right, and for herself, and I began to do the same thing, that's when things began to shift. Period, point blank.
Very good. Heather says, how do you work on your relationship with God when you are disappointed with where you are at this moment in your life? I know that I should be very thankful for every blessing I have, but I do feel God has let me down in some areas. Wow. There are certain practices that I have in place now, but I heard something, and I don't know where I was, but years ago, this helped me significantly because in my single days, I was very, very close to God. Very prayed in the morning, prayed in the night, and just felt a connection to God. But then as I got married and kids came into play, that connection, that time that I had to spend in his presence dwindled away and it changed. And I started to feel some kind of way about it. I started to feel like, oh my God, I'm not doing what I'm supposed to do. And God no longer talks to me. And where's my connection and all these things? And a minister somewhere had talked about seasons. He talked about seasons. And was basically saying that when you're in that singleness season, you have all the time. You actually have, this is the time of your life, not to focus on getting married and getting a man, but focus on building your spirit life up. Focus on connecting to God and finding out who you are and what your purpose is. And then when you move into the next phase, it's the children rearing phase. Things shift. A lot of your attention is going to your husband. A lot of your attention is going to work and to your children and things of that nature. And so he talked about the seasons so that you don't have to hold yourself accountable to certain levels all the time. As a matter of fact, if you got up this morning and said, I'm going to give God 10 gratitudes this morning. I'm going to thank you for this, thank you for that. That would actually shift the day for you. That would actually be a magnificent change if you actually started that essential practice, which it is. Getting up every morning and just speaking your gratitudes and then adding a prayer. That would change everything. But I think we need to stop holding ourselves accountable to certain seasons of our life that we remember when we could, and look at what we have right now and maximize the time that we have now to get closer to God.
And I would also say my greatest enemy is in me. It's inside of me. And I think in general, Heather, and this is for everybody, we have a tendency of pointing the finger at so many other people, at so many other things and circumstances. And we make other things responsible for where we are. It goes all the way back to the garden. Adam blamed God, the woman that you gave me. So in essence, he blamed Eve and he blamed God for his situation. And then a lot of times we blame the devil. A lot of times we blame circumstances. We blame the government. We blame our parents. We blame everybody else for where we currently are. And sometimes we have to look within ourselves and ask ourselves, how are we not showing up? What are we doing? What did we contribute to where we are today? It just reminds me of that story back in the day. A guy goes to McDonald's and he drinks coffee and he burned his tongue and he sued for millions of dollars. Like, people are looking for things to point their finger at and blame instead of just blowing on that coffee, letting it sit down for a couple of minutes, let it cool off, and then drinking it.
Right.
And so, listen, we've all have been dealt, I guess, a hand of cards, a deck of cards, whatever that phrase is. And we have to learn how to properly manage it and how to work it. And so what I don't want you to do is to somehow cast blame on God for where you are. God is the creator of all. God has given us options. God has given us his spirit and principles by which we should live our life. And rather than turning from him, I would encourage you to turn to him and find out how to overcome your situation. And we're part of that, right? So God has a system that he put in place. We're part of that system to help pour into you, to give you insight, to give you the fuel you need to shift forward in your life and to have the best version of your life that you could possibly have. So I just felt the need to say that.
Awesome. Let's see. How do you deal with a spouse who has a hopeless mindset and therefore feel as if there is nothing they can do to help fix problems in the relationship? The person thinks their partner is never satisfied.
Yeah. So mindset is everything. We talk about that. And here's the reality. A lot of times when we work with couples, there's three scenarios we have. Either A, both are fully on board and ready to go and want this thing to work. B, one wants it and the other one's just not sure. They're less committed. They're just, I don't know. We'll see what happens. C, one wants it and the other one does not. But what we do know is that it takes only one to initiate a process. We talk about this, how at the time where Danielle was just done, she wasn't interested. She didn't believe. She didn't have any hope. I was the one who believed. I was the one who held on. I was the one who put in the work. And because of my consistency, she then became a believer because things began to change. So here's the challenge. And I say this, most men are so stuck because we are literalists and we pay attention to every word that these women say. Well, fine, we're very reactionary. Like, what happened to the leader in men? What happened to the men who took the lead and made things happen and weren't so reactionary and responded to everything that a woman says and does? So if she's not into it, well, fine. If she don't want it, then fine. I'm done. She don't want. And then the moment she turns around and says, "Yeah, I'm willing to work," oh, okay, well, she's willing to work on it, so I'll put in the work. Like, dude, be consistent. Step up. Take a stand. Like, don't leave your post. Do whatever it takes to get what it is that you say that you want. Like, we have so much. I don't know, we have so much energy and we have so much passion about accomplishing things in this world, whether it's education, whether it's fitness goals, whether it's getting that money. But when it comes to our relationships, we somehow shift. It's like we are he men with she weaknesses, and we punk ourselves and we allow ourselves to be.
Did you say that? Could you
I
say
said
that again?
we are he men with she weaknesses.
I think that woke me up, Ruth.
And so what we need to do is take a stand. When she didn't want it, I did. When she didn't believe it, I did.
That's
when
true.
she was willing to just let it all go, I wasn't. And it was, they're looking for consistency.
Yeah.
They're looking to see what we are going to do. And if we do nothing, if we're know nothings and do nothings, then we ain't never going to get nothing. But if we're willing to take a stand and willing to do whatever it takes, well, what do I need? It doesn't matter what it takes. If you have a strong why for what you want, you will endure anyhow, no matter what the how is. So I wasn't trying to, I'm just speaking in general about what we need to do as men.
I know. And so, I mean, I almost forgot the question. That was so good. But I'll add this, that I was in a place of apathy, And that's what it sounds like where the person's at. They are in a place of apathy, and that is danger zone. I think for the other person who needs to wake up, they need to actually have a wake up call like you did. I remember what I said to you, that you declitterized me. That was a wake up call, because now it was just like, there's a trouble in paradise. I think something needs to happen inside that relationship where there's a wake-up call, and that person who is so, disconnected from what's going on says, oh, if I don't turn around and do something, I'm going to be in some serious trouble. Mm-hmm. But that person is struggling because they're not seeing any change. So they're like, forget it. Like, nothing I say works, nothing I can do. I'm just going to be in this relationship until I'm not. And that's the danger zone that we were in.
That's exactly what it was. And let me just say this, because Cool, the lover, I'm not sure if you're male, female, because of the name. But listen, this is not gender specific. We know women who have been on the side of the offense, and they were the ones who put in the work, and they were the ones who stood strong, and they were the ones who had faith and belief and tenacity and stick-to-itivism and weren't willing to give up, cave in, and quit because they knew what the possibility of their marriage could be if they got things together. Yeah. So whoever, it's not one-sided at all.
Just one. It just takes one.
But stop giving up, caving in, and quitting because your circumstances are what they currently are. All things are subject to change.
Okay. Here's another one from Terrence. Hey guys, good morning. How long should a spouse stay if she is doing all that is needed to regain the trust in the relationship? I guess it's a continuation to it. Like, okay, you're doing everything you can, but they're just not ready, or they're just not there. How long should you stay? Well, the message I just gave is a message for you. You should stay as long as it takes. I mean, at the end of the day, we operate in different ways. Our healing process is different. Like, at the end of the day, if you're the hurt partner, stop being trapped in the pit of your pain. Stop waiting for your spouse to do everything before you make a decision to do something for yourself. While your spouse has one role to play, you have a role to play. Both of you have to play your part. And we know that sometimes spouses outpace each other in terms of their willingness to become the best versions of themselves. And so if I'm where I need to be, now I'm struggling and I'm frustrated that you're not
you're not moving as quickly as I want you to move.
Yes.
That can become frustrating.
Right. And because of that, because there's the different paces going on, like you can have the one spouse that's working hard and doing everything right now, crossing all the T's and dotting all the I's, but the hurt partner is stuck in pain and not trying to do anything about it. They need counseling.
They do.
Period. That person that's stuck in pain needs to be with somebody who can give them the tools and the tactics that they need to get out of that place. And sometimes they're just not aware. There's so much in their pain, they don't even know that they hold their own keys, that it's time for them to work on themselves and get their healing. It has nothing to do with the relationship specifically.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, the person that hurt you has to do all the right things so that you can regain trust. But to get the healing, it is your choice. You can decide to be in pain the rest of your life over this, or you can decide to heal.
Straight up and down. And listen, if that's you, because I know so many hurt spouses who refuse to go to counseling. I'm not going to be manipulated and have you disrespect me in front of the counselor and paint a picture that's not real to me. Listen, the fact is, it probably is a real picture. It probably is. And you probably don't want to see yourself for who you are because of what has happened to you, what you've turned into. You have been hurt. And when you're operating from a place of hurt, you don't show up as your best self. That's why you need the help. Both of you need the help individually and collectively. And that's why you should reach out to Couples Academy. So I hope that today was helpful in some way, that you took a nugget. It sure
went quick, didn't it?
It did. It goes so quickly. But I hope that you took something that will be pivotal and transitional in your life. Listen, a couple quick announcements and we will be right back. This is the class that's coming up in just a couple of minutes. Here's the video. That's right. We're excited about September 26th.
Are y'all liking the
2020.
ads?
I hope they like the ads in the music.
Hassani's been working hard.
I'm working for you guys.
He's been doing
I'm working
ads.
for you guys. But we want you to know about September 26th. It is the More Than Words Communication Masterclass, 4 powerful hours. We're not just going to give you great content, but we're going to walk you through exercises. It's going to be very experiential. If you've ever been a part of anything that we've done, you know how we do it. It's going to be transformational. So if you need to heal in your relationship, and a major component is communication, you need to sign up for that class. The link is in the description. Just click on it. Sign up for the class today. Some of you have asked, well, what if my spouse is working and they cannot attend? Well, you can attend, and you will also receive a recording right after that class for you to go and watch it with your spouse later. So sign up today. One other quick announcement, and then we're on our way out.
There is an epidemic in our world today concerning marriage. It's not divorce, although that's bad. It's not infidelity, although it's on the rise. The epidemic we are talking about regarding marriage is ignorance. Millions of people are getting married each year, and they have no idea what to do to make the marriage flourish and grow. And we know that God has a place in our marriage. But what does that look like? Whether you've been married for a day, a year, or decades, be assured that there is hope and help for you today that will turn your marriage in the right direction. These well-known relationship experts and authors have devoted their lives to helping couples not only survive the rough patches, but thrive and bloom into something more beautiful than before. You're invited to call now for their book, The Audacity of Marriage, and learn how to overcome common challenges couples face. You'll also receive the DVD series titled The Before, During, and After of an Affair. 3 crucial messages on one DVD dealing with the topic of infidelity and how to prevent it. In addition, you and your spouse will also enjoy individual DVD messages by Hassani and his wife, Danielle. The Marriage Mastermind, The Power of Partnership, teaches how to use the law of agreement to manifest God's best in your life. And Copreneurship, Partnering in Passion and Profit, explores the issues of couples working together at home and work successfully. All of this for a love gift of only $59.99. But that's not all. Hassani and Danielle would like to personally invite you to join them at one of their many nationwide Audacity of Marriage conferences. When you call right now, you will receive 2 tickets valued at $200 each, free. Remember, in almost every marriage, there is a partner suffering from ignorance, and your gift of this book may be just what they need to save their relationship. Call now and get back to the joy of your marriage together. Operators are standing by.
That's right. We want you to get the collection right now. If you go to the website, couplesacademy.org, you'll find it in the banner and you can click on it and purchase it today. Listen, we hope that you got something out of today. Have an amazing weekend. And let's come back on Monday morning and start this thing all over again. Love you guys.
Bye.
Talk to you soon.
Can't bring us down. Can't nothing bring us down. Our love is too high. Bring us down. Can't nothing bring us down. Bring us down. Can't nothing